In this video, we will be discussing the perfect passive participle, which is a new form for us. So looking at this first sentence, we have Aurelia errata, onculum reprehendebat. And if we're translating, we see we can start here with Aurelia. There's our subject. Here's the verb. I know that, first of all, she's nominative, and I also know that my verb is third person singular, so those match up. Aurelia ba, so Aurelia was blaming, and then the person she was blaming, the direct object, is onculum. So I've dealt with, which is slave woman. So I've dealt with three of the words in this sentence. Aurelia was blaming the slave woman. So I have not yet dealt with errata. And errata is an adjective, erratus, errata, erratum, meaning angry. And to figure out whether it is if Aurelia is angry or the slave woman is, I look at this ending and I say that this tells me, that A tells me feminine, singular, nominative, so it must modify Aurelia. So when I put that all together, now I say angry Aurelia was blaming the slave woman. And so this adjective describes Aurelia, and it agrees with Aurelia in gender, number, and case. And that's how I know that that's who is angry, that it's Aurelia. Anything that describes a noun is an adjective. So tall, happy, great, huge, sad, green, 12. All of those that describe a noun, those are all adjectives. So moving on to the second sentence, I've just replaced our adjective with another adjective. Instead, we have vexata, which is a word we learned in chapter 18. We learned that vexatus means annoyed, or having been annoyed. So now it's not just Aurelia was blaming the slave woman, but Aurelia, having been annoyed, was blaming the slave woman. And we learned this as an adjective, but it actually comes from our verb vexo, vexare, vexavi, vexatus, meaning to annoy. And where in the verb is that form coming from that we got for the adjective? Yeah, do you see it right there? It's the fourth principal part. So we've been using this fourth principal part already with the form of sum to create the perfect passive verb. But by itself, it's what we call the perfect passive participle. So when you think about our principal parts, the first is first person singular present active indicative. The second is the present active infinitive. The third is the first person singular perfect active indicative. And then the fourth principal part is our perfect passive participle. A participle, this word right here, participle, is a verbal adjective. So that means that this is an adjective that comes from a verb. So when I look at our sample sentence, Aurelia was blaming the slave woman, and I want to describe Aurelia. I'm describing her with an adjective that means she has undergone this action. She's undergone the process of being annoyed. So Aurelia, annoyed, or Aurelia having been annoyed, was blaming the slave woman. So to look at another example, I've got the boy. The boy, currit, the boy, what does he do? The boy runs. Now I have an adjective to describe the boy. What kind of boy is he? He's a parvus boy. The small boy runs. But in the second example, same idea, the boy runs, but now he is the amatus boy, from amo, amare, amawi, amatus. So another fourth principal part. And that means the idea in this is love, but he's experienced it, so I'm going to say loved. The loved boy, as an adjective, just like I would say small, the loved boy runs. Or I could pull it out and use my having been and say the boy, having been loved, runs. Since this comes from a verb, I can add things that we normally see with verbs. So in this case here, amatre, I've added an agent for our perfect passive participle. So the boy, having been loved, matre, by his mother. Back to the main sentence, runs. The boy, having been loved by his mother, runs. Or the boy loved by his mother, runs. And we'll be talking about different ways to translate the participle a lot in the next few days, but your basic translation is having been verbed. So whatever your verb is, so in this case, loved. Sometimes you won't want to say the having been, you'll want to just say loved, and that's fine. So if you look at this next verb, duco, ducere, duxi, ductus, which one is the participle? That last form, ductus, that's our participle. Since this is an adjective, I need it in all three genders though. So I'd have us for the masculine. What about for the feminine? Well, my stem will still be duked. Us, this part right here, is the ending. And if that's masculine, then feminine would have to be an A. And then for the neuter, how do our adjectives go? Us, good. So that would be my neuter. And these would follow our normal patterns. So I would have us, e, o, e, is, os, is, I, is, os, is, e, o, is, is. So your normal patterns that you're used to, just like for any of your regular adjectives. It's no different. So think like Magnus and follow that kind of a pattern. So if I had femina ducta, then I'm saying the woman having been, and then I need to think about what that action is, having been led. And that's all I'm doing with these participles. They help us add some energy and excitement to our sentence because they bring in more action. Because we can describe people with adjectives that are derived from a verbal stem. Okay, so some really quick and simple homework for you tonight. Just like I did above with duco, where I found the participle and I put it in all three genders. So I said if it's duco, ducere, duxi, ductus, ductus is my participle, but I need it in all three genders. So it was ductus, ducta, ductum. You can just go back in the video if you want to see that again. You're going to give those for each of these 5 verbs. So you'll give the participle in all 3 genders. Do this in your notebook. Bring it with you tomorrow. And then you're also going to give me the meaning. So since duco means to lead, the participle ductus meant having been led. So that's what you're bringing tomorrow in your notebook, complete for all 8 of these verbs. I want the participle in all 3 genders and the meaning in English. And that's your homework. Thank you.